Okay, I decided to record this, maybe post it, maybe not, depending on how terrible I do. Basically got my bike up on jack stands. Had to get a triple tree stand for the front because you have to swing the front fork around to release the tire from the caliper. Haven't figured out yet if I need to take off a few of the other elements because my bracket comes into my freewheel on that, and then I'm not sure if I need to I'll probably take this off just so that I can see how the belt is and when it lines up. I had spools on my tire, so I had to take those off so that I can put the stand underneath with the little blocks, because you have to take out the axle, so that gets in the way. Also, there is a pincher bolt underneath here. I'm not 100% sure how tight it is, so I just left the bike on the ground to get a little bit more leverage. I used a 3/8 to break the axle loose. Bought one of these. It's a hex axle. Comes with a few different sizes. Buell XB12, the 22 millimeter, seems to work. It wasn't that bad. 16 bucks. Not cheap, but it comes in handy, so you don't have to rig stuff together and remember how you did it. Stuck it in with a socket. It's a 3/8 driver on it, so it's kind of small. And I went ahead and loosened this up, and I loosened that up. So I'm going to figure out if I need to take those off, put the jack stand back on the bike, and go from there. So I decided to go ahead and, since this is my first time doing this whole thing in general, it's good to go the extra steps. I'm going to go ahead and take out the fairing, the bottom, and I'm going to go ahead and take off this cover as well. These actually have 4, take that back, 5 of these screws that keep that bottom fairing in. Pretty simple to take out, depending on your setup. This one here is a pain in the butt because it's a little hard to get to. The bracket comes out and it causes a lot of interference in the back. These screws come off the cover here. They have little washers, so be careful to make sure you watch out for those, because those are easy to lose. So I'll just go ahead and take this off real quick, not to try to bore you too much. I'm not sure if I'm going to take off this freewheel here for convenience, but I'll see what happens once I get to start the tire off, how much of a hassle it will be to do that. And I will go and start to remove the brake caliper on the other side. Okay, I'm back on the other side. Just take your time on everything, especially for me, first time. So far everything's been pretty easy, but for right now we're going to take off the brake bolts, and then this line bolt as well. Pardon for my terminology, I don't know all the correct naming conventions, but you get the idea. What I have here is a 5/16 for these. I've already loosened these a little bit, and with this as well, so not to bore you with too much excitement. And the brake caliper already come loose, so it's pretty easy. I'll suspend this so I'll be able to take the tire out, and I'll go back to the other side and take out the axle, and hopefully the tire will come right out. We'll see. Oh yeah. I just cradle this on the heel guard with some bungee cord just so that it'll suspend itself without putting too much pressure on the line or anything like that. I stress very highly not to touch the brakes or apply the brakes while the caliper is off the rotor, because it's easy for these pistons to come out. Well, it seemed like I needed to take this off. I think my belt's pretty brand new. I know you guys who have probably done this several times have better tricks. For me, I had to take off this bracket. It was one bolt underneath by the filter, and then I've got the two bolts that were right here. I pulled this out as far as I could go, and it finally got loose. You actually have to go a little bit further than the 15 turns to get this thing loose. But even with that, I think this is going to make my life a little bit easier by taking this off. Let's see if I get this. This took a little bit to wiggle out. Hopefully I don't lose a finger. And there you go. Just trying to wiggle the belt off the tire. Just be careful, take your time. My belt seems fine. I mean, I can leave it in this awkward position as long as nothing cuts it or tears it or yanks on it. The belt looked pretty good. There we go. So the rear tire's off. Woohoo! Now we have to go to the front tire. Alright, I will be back in a second. Okay, I got the rear tire off. Wasn't that terrible. We'll see how it is when I have to get it back on. Like I was saying before, I do have sliders on my bike, so I will have to take these off first in order to get to the axle. These are the pincher for the front, a 1/4 hex for the front pincher, and then I'll take these off. You know, be very careful because here it'll state on the fork that this, to loosen it, you must go right on it. I don't know if you can see it, but you'll see it on your bike. So I will take my spools off and loosen everything up. And the other side is going to be a little bit trickier because I don't have anybody here to help me, because we have to pull the rotor out of the caliper. So that should be fun, and we get to see how stable this front stand is as well. It was actually not as bad as I thought. I know that these are torqued not as heavily as other bikes, so when we go to reinstall the tire, I will definitely be looking at the manual for torque specs. Make sure you have a torque wrench. I'm gonna continue to back this out a little bit, and then I'm gonna, once I get this loosened enough, we'll move the camera to the other side so that you can see me struggle and take the tire off the caliper. Should be funny. Okay, I've gotten this out pretty far. You can tell when you look to the other side, you can see how it's threading out when you get pretty close. So basically I just need to pull up and just slightly out on the tire to get it off the caliper. So as you can see, kind of what I'm talking about, this rotor has to come out from this brake pad. And again, do not touch the brakes at all, because if you do, you push the pistons out and you'll basically have to disassemble the brakes and to put those pistons back in. Let's hope I remember that as well. This can be quite frustrating, so if you don't feel like you're getting it right away, just take your time, take a break, have some coffee, some donuts. Axle is out. So this is where the fun begins. So instead of trying to force it out, just wiggle your rotor out. No sense in trying to do it quickly, because it is not going to go back in that easy as well. I am bumping onto a lot of other shit. There it is. So hopefully pull this to the left, and hell, wasn't that really that hard at all. It's been I'm not gonna say it's easy, but it's been pretty good. So if you're good with a wrench, document your steps, take your time. I am going to run these to the shop, put on new Metzler M5s. These are M3s. Well, after that, go grab some more coffee, go drop these off, and put these things back on. Cheers. Got my anti-seize lubricant. So far everything's so good, so hopefully I'm about to put the new tire in. I cleaned out the front forks so that it wouldn't be all dirty for the new stuff, and put a little bit in here and a little bit in here. May have coated this a little bit heavy, just making sure stuff is clear of debris. And again, do not touch the brake, and basically got to lift the tire up. All right, let's see if it's easier to get on, and then it was off. Okay, it seemed a little bit more practical than I thought. Hold the tire up, keep it, try not to move too much inside the brake caliper. It's in as far as it being in the correct spot. Just hand twisting it might cut some of this off. Gonna move the camera around. Gonna go ahead and start getting this threaded in a little bit more. Give it a spin, see if anything sounds like it's hitting or rubbing. But like I said, when you torque this, make sure you torque it correctly, because you can ruin the bearings that are inside the tire if you over torque it. So go ahead and give it a spin and try the front brake. Brake pads are still pretty new, so hear them. I didn't have any initial, when I pushed the brake lever, I didn't have any initial response. I had to pump the brake a little bit, so I'm really not sure if that's normal or not. We'll figure that out. Okay, so it says 39 to 41 foot-pounds. I'm going to go 40. I've got my reverse torque wrench. I've got an adapter. I didn't want to have a slew of torque wrenches laying around, so just make sure that I hear that click and I'm done. And then we'll tighten these two guys here in a second. Okay, and these two pinch bolts are 20 to 22 foot-pounds. I'm gonna go 21. Make sure you have the hex head all the way in. The first one's good. Here's the second one. Like I said, everything seems to be okay. It's running against my brake pads. That's why I get that weird sound. But I put new EBC brake pads on. Kind of on the fence. They haven't quite worked out the way I wanted to, but axle grease gets everywhere, so be sure to wear gloves or wipe your hands off. All right, let's go to the rear tire. Well, got it on. Maybe it went a little overboard with the anti-seize on this. As you can see, it's all over the place. Try to get that belt on, and then I will be right back. But I'm going to put the pulley back on, and I'm just going to slide it on real quick. It should be pretty easy, and then I will get back to mounting the rest of the tire. I am going to put some blue Loctite on this and torque it to the right specifications per the manual. It says to, when you're tightening this, to tighten it to 27 foot-pounds, and then you're supposed to go back 2 turns and then tighten it to 48 to 52 foot-pounds. I'm going to go 50. I've already loosened it, and so and that's the rear tire on there. Make sure you can turn it. Doesn't seem like anything's hitting the belts. The pinch fastener underneath. So I'm going to torque it to 40 to 45. I'm going to go with 44. There she goes. Next thing I'm going to do is put on the brake caliper on the other side real quick. Okay, so the last part is getting my brake caliper out from its bungee housing. Swinging it around. Don't know why that got caught up, but it did. Well, I had to push that out a little harder than I wanted to, but now I've put Loctite on these bad boys, and just trying to get them tightened so that they're already there. Don't have to use the torque wrench all the way through. The max is like 26 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go 25 on these 2 brake bolts here. So there's those. I'll tighten this up real quick. Just need a little bit of Loctite on it, just for giggles. Just need a dab. That is basically it for the most part. Now it's just a matter of getting all the cosmetics back on her and going from there. Honestly, make sure you have your brakes are back up in order. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you've enjoyed and gotten something out of this. Alright guys, ladies, have a good one.